it's Saturday morning in Singapore. For me, it's after hours in New York City. So
Mhm.
we're not really helped by any teams, any editors. This is just us. I'm so excited. I mean, we hang out so little because of this massive geographical and time zone distance between us. And yet we've been friends for, I don't know, 7, 8 years. And sometimes
2018, yeah.
to get to hang out. It's kind of a miracle. I just
Mhm.
love it so much. So the purpose basically of this conversation is to talk a little bit about hosting on Interintellect. I always say that Visa, you are the godfather or godmother of Intellect, because in March 2019, when I first went to San Francisco, I actually first came to the US, where I now live, 6 years ago exactly. And I was so intent on building a different kind of company. And then as we were hanging out a lot and we were drawing in all these people into our conversations, many of whom, if not all, are still in Interintellect and they are still friends with you as well. So it's like the stickiness in this community at the core is just kind of unprecedented. Um,
Yeah.
and you were there. And we are in
Yeah.
Toronto. I used to live in London at the time, so I'm like a 13 and a half hour flight away from my home at the time. You are literally in the other end of the world, coming from Singapore,
Yeah.
and we are somehow in San Francisco in this blessed moment. And it's basically there where it becomes clear to me that Interact will exist and that there's a need for this thing, which was such a surprise for me because I never thought I would get to work on something I like. I always thought it was just going to be great suffering for me as an Eastern European. And then, I mean, you have to come to America, I think, to experience this, or some blessed pockets on the internet when you're just doing your thing and people are like, we love this. We want to give you money so that you do this. And you think, really? That
Yeah.
exists? I think it's so counterintuitive. This is not what they teach you in school. So welcome on this live stream. This is so exciting for me. Good morning. Um,
Yeah.
I just want to talk to you a little bit about what it feels like to host an Interact, why it's different from a lot of other platforms. Um,
Mhm.
because first of all, you've hosted some of the best salons in our history, both
Oh,
public and members and all this stuff, but also you participated in festivals, etc., offline. But also you're hosting a series for wannabe hosts
hmm,
there is I'm not there, right? Because it's like a
right.
safe space. This is like all the hosts come together, all the creators using our platform to host extremely groundbreaking conversations that are not polarized, are not
Mhm.
toxic, are not academic, are not network. It's not a
Mhm.
dating show. It's really just about the ideas. And they come to you in this group therapy setting and you just talk about the ideas. So how
Yeah.
paint me a picture of what this is like. What are the most common questions, and how are these upcoming hosts?
Right.
I
Yeah.
see
So
them when they have submitted their events, right? So I only see them in the dashboard when the editors look at the submissions, but you meet them at that kind of when they are just like really, really budding, or in the park.
yeah, I think it's interesting. I I never quite know what to expect from some selection of people attending anything, but it's always, before it happens, I always assume it's gonna be kind of random, but there are always patterns that you see afterwards that seem kind of obvious. And the people who attend, uh, these do you want to host but you're not sure kind of events, like they're the threshold of hosting, but they're not quite there yet. Most of them are like kind of perfectionist, or kind of they have, well, they want to contribute, they want to host, right? They want to do something that other people can enjoy, but they have self-doubt. They have, these ideas of how great a salon has to be, and what if I do something and people don't show up, or if people don't have a good time. Like, everyone's afraid of, in fact, I think more than no shows, people are afraid of wasting other people's time. And I think that's great because, first of all, it's a sign that you care. And those are the people that you do want hosting because they care about. So it's funny because I'm sure there have been some hosts over the years who were not that concerned, whereas the people at the fringes and the thresholds are like, oh, I would like to host, but what if some people don't have a good time? And I always tell people like that's something you can plan for, you can think about in advance, and then you can do some things about. And like if there's only one thing I could tell hosts or would-be hosts that has served me well and I think helps everyone have a good salon experience is to ask yourself the question, and this informs the salon that you decide on to begin with, or it informs how you frame the whole thing, which I think is like the difference between like a good experience and a not so good experience, is ask yourself why this should be a salon and not like a lecture. Because, you know,
You were going
it
to
would
say a tweet, like how to decide whether this should be a 2 hour salon with 20 people discussing this idea or just a tweet.
yeah, sometimes it should just be a tweet, and that's fine as well. And or sometimes it should be like a YouTube video that people can watch on their own and then they can, you know, pause and scroll back and forth and so on. So and I asked myself that question when I started doing salons myself. And you know, I'm a voyeur. I love to know things and see things that I'm not supposed to see or it's not easy to see. And so whenever I host a salon, before I start the salon, I ask myself, what do I want to hear from people about? What personal experiences or what anecdotes or what questions or what thoughts? Usually experiences. Usually I want to know what has your experience been with, you know, and I remember attending the last salon I attended, which was a while ago because I had a kid. But that was like people who were transitioning after having career burnout. And it was such a great salon and it was so fascinating because you have like 20 people ish who all have had different yet similar experiences, none of whom feel very confident about speaking up about those experiences like in public. So you're not going to see tweets from these people or you're not going to see, and you know, even if you do see tweets from people talking about burnout, there's still a slightly performative kind of angle to it where they are presenting in a certain way. So there's this whole sphere of intimate human experience and relation of that experience that a salon is uniquely positioned to do. And I would say probably the main job of the host, or you know, well, the host is multiple jobs, but like the thing that if you get right, everything else kind of takes care of itself a little bit, is thinking about what you want your attendees to share. And once you do that, you solve a lot of problems. Like people, so when people say, I worry that someone's going to come and have a bad time, usually it's that, oh, they're sitting there and they don't know what to say and they don't know what to do and they feel like they're just a fly on the wall. I mean, I've heard some people say they've attended salons like that were still pretty good because the speaker was so engaging and it's like, oh, it's like a back and forth between a host and a author or something cool like that. But if you don't have that, then the next best thing is just get everyone or most of the people to share a little bit about their experience. And there's a bit of a show vibe where, but like a wholesome version, where everyone's attention just goes way up when you're witnessing someone else share their life story or their work experience or relationship experience or, you know, travel, whatever kind of contentious experience that they've had. And I do find that the culture on in II has been really good for getting people to see. I mean, I think selecting for people who value that, right? Like, so instead of like, oh, you've already made up your mind about everything and you have like, you know, a confident uh, point of view, you can just sit and witness this kind of proto unfinished work in progress, thinking out loud experience. And that to me is like the essence of a good salon. It's like you went there and you witnessed people who haven't made up their mind about things and are listening for each other's experiences. And I have found, even if you aren't necessarily at the absolute cutting edge of some field, which some is so that's a recurring thing I hear about a lot about as well, where people say, I want to do a salon on politics or on media theory or on, you know,
I'm not
language
a
or this
professor or
yeah, I'm not
yeah.
the eminent person at the cutting edge of the field. And to that, I always say, you know, if people wanted to witness the professor, they can go on YouTube and watch or
Yeah.
go on a podcast and listen. And even then, sometimes these people do show up at salons, which is amazing. Like in fact, I think I once did a salon on like symbolism as a layperson who's just curious
I
about
remember
stories.
the ways of seeing, right?
Yeah, and like a PhD in semiotics showed up, and she was like, "Oh, I'm this is my day job, but I'm not gonna, I
Yeah.
was like, do you want to speak instead? Do you want to host?" And
I
she's like,
had
"No, no,
that too.
no."
I hosted History of War as a layperson, just because the best hosts are very, I mean, a special guest is usually a world expert, but the hosts are usually just very interested lay people because it's much better for the audience to have an equal conversation with somebody who's just like a little bit ahead of you because she has read three more books than you know?
Yeah.
And it's just so much better. Like I always say, like we're the anti-TED Talks, like
Hmm.
nobody's on the stage and you don't have to sit in the dark and shut up like like the teachers of the antiquity, Jesus, Socrates, Buddha. The Interact host sits down with everybody. It's like we are trying to like close that delta and not widen it. The host should be as close to the audience as possible. And I just really, really, I mean, when I did the History of War series, people from West Point were attending.
Oh shit.
It was kind of crazy, and it was great. And then you had people who just like kind of like fall in from the street, basically. Somebody who's like
Right.
read one of the 10 articles that were the readings, and they were great because the ultimate wisdom is in everybody.
Right.
Like whatever
Y-
the topic is, we are talking about what it means to be human on Interintellect, and everybody knows who is a human and what it means to be human. You don't have to have a PhD in it. You have a PhD when you're born. It's called,
Yeah.
being a human, and you've got this. And I want to hear from you. Before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about your Friendly Ambitious Nerd project, because you
Hmm.
are the Friendly Ambitious Nerd, and
Yeah.
everyone loves you for it. And you have a book named
Hmm.
that, and I think it's your
Yeah.
persona as well.
Hmm.
What does it mean to be a Friendly Ambitious Nerd, and why these three words? And if somebody feels like they are a friendly ambitious nerd, what should they do with their lives?
Right. I mean, so, you were there, like we both experienced the same cosmic event. I don't know how you want to describe it, but like the thing that got you doing the Interintellect was the same thing that got me doing Friendly Ambitious Nerd, which was I was already like that, but up until I had been flown across the planet by internet friends who liked my stuff, I was living on like the fumes of hope. Like I was hoping that someday, maybe decades later, after like a lot of like writing on the side and stuff like that, eventually people would start to understand what I'm trying to say. But it happened in that magical season, and I've always been, where do I start? I was like a nerdy, disenfranchised kid who just, and I think a lot of people in the internet like are similar, like just people who are curious, earnest, want to connect, want to discuss, both mundane and profound things, and not be like, exclusionary about it, but also care about standards. It's just everything, the tensions and everything. And so I wrote the book. Well, I was already tweeting a lot and blogging a lot about all of my disparate interests and ideas. And when I decided that it was time for me to publish something, because people kept asking me, "Do you have a book? I would love to read a book because I like what you've written elsewhere." So when like doing kind of market research for my book, I would ask people, "How do you introduce my stuff to other people if you want to share?" And this is good advice for anybody who wants to write a book or anybody who wants to figure out how to present your work in a way that resonates. Chances are your work already resonates with some people, and you can actually just ask them how they share it with other people. Because if you use that same, since that's already proof of work of how your stuff is being shared, right? So yeah, I pull out like a spreadsheet and I just ask people for, when you share my stuff, what do you say? And like I noticed that there were those three buckets. People say Visa's very friendly, Visa's very curious, Visa's very, kind of grand. And so eventually I assembled all of my writing, and I felt that it fit into those things. And also I know that whatever your first book is, people will introduce you as the author of that book. So I didn't want to do a book about like marketing or about ADHD because I didn't want to be introduced as, hey, here's the guy who wrote this book on marketing. I'm like, yeah, it's a thing I do, but it's not me. I would like to be introduced as something that I want to live up to. So yeah, so friendly, and when I wrote it, I didn't realize yet how I now describe it as like it's the seed of an operating system for human flourishing, which I didn't realize at the time. It's like it's just how I am and how I relate to people, and it seems to be working. And I go online. I'm
Say that
I'm a very
again,
online
just so
person.
that our viewers can remember. Say that again.
Uh oh, friendly ambitious nerd is like the seed of an operating system for human flourishing.
I
So
love
I want to develop it further. So currently it's just a bunch of sketches and notes
it.
and blog posts and all of that. But I do want to develop it further into something more substantial and cohesive that more people can plug into. So the language, the description of the term friendly ambitious nerd it's using natural language. So there's people interpret it differently. I feel like there's a strong version and a or like a weak soft version. And the soft version is, a lot of people most people are kind of friendly. But I do have like stronger versions of what I mean by each term. So when I say friendly, I mean not just like, like polite or jovial. I mean like they really make an effort to kind of like what you're doing, like make an effort to be a switchboard between other people to create contexts where more people can hang out and flourish, which is sorely needed in a time of disorientation and fragmentation. And when I say nerd, I have I stumbled onto, I can't remember how I figured this out, but like I love my definition of nerd, which is a person whose behavior is driven by their curiosity. So the more of your behavior is driven by your curiosity, the bigger of a nerd you are. I find that to be a very useful definition. And everyone, like all children are curious, but then as they grow up, they get less curious, usually because of like societal pressures and conformity and blah blah blah. But I do believe that people put in a curious environment or an environment that encourages curiosity will reawaken their natural curiosity. And we need people to be curious to make progress in any frontier, right? Any field, or like even just whether it's just improving the state of your immediate circumstances in your own life or like trying to make breakthroughs in something else. Like you have to be asking questions and you have to be trying stuff. And I can go on about this for hours and hours. I'm trying to make it succinct. Um, yeah, I just think
Just
that
to kind
we
of
need.
summarize. So basically the message is that there is hope. And if you reach out,
Yeah,
even in this day and age, I mean, 2019 was not that much less crazy. We think that today is,
yeah,
I mean, today particularly was extremely crazy, but like normally, there's always an excuse out there why not to reach out, why not to put your work on the internet,
yeah,
why not to write books on Gumroad, why not to list a series on Interintellect and gather people. And the thing is, like, we work a little bit on this dolphin song basis, right? So if there's
mhm,
an honest voice, deeply curious about something, somebody will hear it.
yeah, yeah. I think if I could only say like a couple of things, it's like I think a lot of people struggle with a kind of they see the most lurid examples of something. They see someone getting dogpiled on online and they think that everything's like that. But you just need a couple of people who really listen and really care. And you can be one of those people for someone else. And like if we just if we start with a very small cluster of people like that, it becomes, something that more and more people can join.
Oh my God. Amen. Visakan Veerasamy, you are the absolute best. And I've met everybody. So I say this objectively. Guys, follow Visa on Twitter, on Substack, buy his incredible books, and come to the Interintellect events we're doing together. We will do some of these conversations that you've just seen, in an ongoing way. Every once in a while, we will try to check in and share our experiences with the world because it's just such a unique place to be running events with strangers in deep conversation, deep ideas. There really is nothing like Interintellect. It's not gated behind subscription. All events that you see on the website, with a very little exception, are public. You can grab a ticket, often for like $5, and have the time of your life with hosts like Viz and me and many, 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 many other people from all over the world who just want to have a good time chatting about their ideas. Thank you guys for listening to us and watching us. We'll be back. This is Visakan Veerasamy, and I was Anna Gath from Interintellect. Take care.
You guys.